Welcome to this week's episode of the Terrible Outdoorsman Podcast. This is episode 192. You got your host Danielson here, and I am flying solo with none of the other guys from the team. However, I do have a pretty cool guest with me here tonight, calling in from the state that starts with an O. Go Blue, Mr.
No. Calling in from Florida.
Oh, from Florida. That's right. That's right. I forgot you're not in Florida, but yeah, from the Deadpair Podcast, Mr. Jason Rambo.
What's up, Dan? How you been, man?
Been great, man. Been great. Thanks for joining. I appreciate you doing this kind of last minute for us and taking the time to get on here with me. So I really appreciate it.
Yeah, no, I appreciate you inviting me. It was awesome. I'm flattered, seriously.
Yeah, well, yeah, I appreciate that. So yeah, we episode 192. We're gearing towards episode 200. We've had 1 week that we've missed in 192 weeks. So it's been quite a grind.
Well, you know, Sean and I try to do between 35 and 40 a year. So I can't imagine, you know, back-to-back weeks like that every week, week in and week out. That's got to be, I mean, after 5 years, we celebrated our 200th, and that was a big deal. And you guys are, I mean, you're coming on strong, man. Have 200 episodes already. That's saying something.
Well, thanks, man. I appreciate that. It's definitely been a grind. We've had a lot of support from our families, obviously. You know, without their sign off, we would have never gotten to where it is, or could never possibly reach where we're going to reach here. So it's been a cool journey.
I like to say it takes a village.
Yeah, it sure does. It sure does. So you're down in Ohio. So you live, or you're down in Florida. You live in Florida full time now?
Yeah. Sean's still up in Ohio. Okay. I'm down here in Florida now, which I guess you could say is permanent residence now. So I was back and forth for a couple of years when I first moved the wife and kid down, and now I've pretty much about the last 9, 10, maybe 11 months I've been permanent. So
wow. Okay.
But it's been quite a transition. I like it though. It's good.
Yeah, no, that's great. So is it warmer in Florida than it is in Ohio? Because it's been hot here.
Yeah, well, you know, it's funny. I was in Ohio in August for the Ohio State Championship, and it was actually, the temperature was pretty similar, but it was actually hotter in Ohio. It was more humid. I'm pretty close to the coast on the west side, and I've always got a good breeze going here, and it's just nowhere near as humid. In fact, I was in Chicago in June, and it was unbelievably hotter than it is here. So but you know, where you guys are starting to cool off up there, it's still staying, you know, in the high 80s here. So
yeah, I think I saw the weather report for this weekend. We're having a Halloween camping weekend, and it's the second weekend, and it's supposed to be 90 on Saturday.
Wow.
Like, what in the world, man?
Yeah. Well, you know, and I hate to be the bearer of bad news, but all the like future forecasts that I'm seeing they're calling for the winter, basically where that jet stream is that cuts through the middle of the country. Everything north of that's going to be considerably colder this year. So, you know, yeah, I guess the cycle they go through. So
not exactly looking forward to that, but we'll be complaining about the cold weather soon enough, and then we'll wish it's warm again, and you know the vicious cycle.
Yeah, I tease Sean all the time when he's complaining about chiseling ice off the windshield. I usually send him a picture of me on the beach somewhere with palm trees and sand and a drink in my hand. So
yeah, good for you. Good for you. Well, so as I kind of alluded to at the beginning of the intro of the show, you yourself host the Deadpair Podcast. Now, to me, being a younger shooter in the shooting world, I think that it is one of the coolest things in the world that you guys get to interview and talk to some of the people that I've looked up to for many, 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 many years. And so I guess just tell me a little bit about like where you guys kind of started and kind of where the idea came from. And yeah, I guess we'll just kind of go from there.
So there was a very well-known podcast. It was called Behind the Break. that Justin Barker, Kevin DeMichael, and Alex was doing, and it was ending. They were going to call it quits. And I was really bummed because I really enjoyed that podcast, and I learned a lot from all the pro shooters that would come on. And I talked to Sean. I was like, man, you want to try and give this a go? And he's like, yeah, he was excited about it. And man, I still say we have no idea what we're doing, but we learn. Every time the mics went hot, we learned something new, and we learn what people do and don't like. Of course, the keyboard warriors can be your most deadly critics, as you know. But it's been a wild ride. It really has. We've met so many awesome people, and I know you say the people you look up to in shooting, and a lot of those have become just that. They were the great people that we looked up to, and then some of them, Sean kind of equates to Santa Claus. Like, you wake up one day when you're a kid and you realize that maybe that's not real, and it's kind of like that's kind of what it's like meeting some of these guys. It's like, wow, I looked up to you, and you're just insane. But they all have their own little niche, if you will, or their own, what makes them so great. And that's been very interesting, and in hearing their backstories and their journeys, and it's been a lot of fun. It really has. And I still enjoy it. Every time we record, I have a blast, but that's the fun part. When the mics are hot, that's the fun part of it. It's everything before and after that. I don't think a lot of people realize how much work it is.
It is. Yeah.
I'm very fortunate. My wife, she does a phenomenal job with editing, but I mean, some of these podcasts, she's 14 hours just cleaning up audio, not content cutting, just cleaning up the audio. Cause as an audio podcast, that's all you have is the sound. And she does a very good job of cleaning that up. And I've put her through the ringer. There's been some times that Sean and I have handed her stuff that was like just complete garbage. And I've seen her up at 2:00 in the morning, working on stuff. So, but it's still a wild ride. It really is. The biggest problem, I would say, Sean equates it to herding cats. Is everybody wants to be on, but getting them to commit to a date and time is just about impossible. And then they call you with 10 minutes to go, man, I can't make it. It's too many Christmas. So
yeah, no, that definitely is, definitely relatable to us. It literally happened to us 2 consecutive weeks now. And, it's just like, what do you do? Now we gotta, it's Thursday and we got to put a show together, So, this is, and then this is where we end up having this conversation today, So, yeah, so kind of going back to the Deadpair podcast a little bit. So I think that one of the coolest things that I like about your guys' show is within the sporting clays community, everybody's got their own unique sort of niche way to go about how they manage their business on the sporting clays course, off the sporting clays course, in their home life, all that. And so everybody brings something different to your guys' show almost every single week.
Yeah.
Like you guys have Brandon on, Brandon Powell, he's got a whole different layer of something that Don Grant would have, and it's equally as awesome to listen to and equally as unique to listen to. But it's just the way everybody kind of perceives their own, I guess, managed sort of processing when it comes to shooting. That's one of the things that I really like about your guys' show. So, and of course you, Sean, you and Sean do a great job. It seems like, if nobody knew you, you guys would act like you could almost seem like your brothers. You guys act towards each other. So,
well, I got a lot of slack in the beginning because people were giving me a hard time for teasing him as much as I do. And it's like, look, I've known this guy since 1993. He stood in my wedding. He's one of my very best friends. And you guys just don't hear how much crap he gives me when the mics are off,
Sure.
And it took about a year for people to realize that we're just having fun,
Yeah.
But it's, and that, there is other podcasts in sporting clays, but everybody has their own unique flair. For me, this is just me personally, and it's been perceived well because people find it's relatable. But when I have a guest on, yeah, absolutely, we want to hear their backstory. But as a shooter, I want to get, what can I get out of this guy? What can I learn from this guy or gal, excuse me? And, how can they help me with what I'm struggling with? So we try to always keep it entertaining and then also informative, educational. So it's been, like I said, it's been a wild journey. We've learned a lot and what to do, what not to do, what to ask, what not to ask. We can get ourselves in trouble real quick. I mean, just
And that's one thing that we, knock on wood, we really haven't ran into too much yet on our show is, you kind of said like the keyboard warriors. You know, our community, our following is relatively small. I mean, it's not, hundreds of thousands of viewers or, spread across the entire country. I mean, we have a fair amount of people that listen that, we like to engage in a lot of Michigan related things. There's a lot of like veteran events that go on here. There's you know, different companies that we, sort of associate with to where while hunting and fishing you can do no matter where you're at in the country, not everybody just does like sporting clays just in Michigan.
right.
Sporting clays is spread out throughout the entire country as well. And that community is, I think, even more niche, right? In the way of some people might not even know what sporting clay shooting is. They might call it skeet shooting, or they might call it trap shooting or,
I run into it all the time.
yeah. So where like somebody knows what fishing is, but they might not know what sporting clays is.
That's funny you say that because like Sean and I call it the low hanging fruit. There was so many great clubs and so many great tournaments in Ohio. And I went to Sean one day. I'm like, look, we have got to quit talking about Ohio. And he's like, what do you mean? And I pulled up the stats and it was like, we're being downloaded in 150 countries, all 50 states. And it's like 15,000 or 16,000 cities across the United States. And it's like, not everybody wants to hear about what's going on in Ohio, but it really was low hanging fruit, just like Michigan. I mean, if you're anything outdoors, Michigan is just, I mean, it's Candyland. It really is. I mean, my dad went for like 28 or 29 years straight salmon fishing in Michigan. You know, Sean used to go to the UP and go bird hunting and stuff. And I mean, Michigan's great for that. So I understand what you're saying. There's a lot of low hanging fruit there. But you have to be considerate of all the other places. And then when I started getting out, I'm a little bit more fortunate. I could travel more than Sean could because of his business. And I started getting out. It's like, holy cow, there's this great big sporting clay world outside of just Ohio and Florida and, the surrounding states. And, Chad Roberts took me clear to California and I was out there shooting. And it's the shooting scene out there, even though it's a incredibly liberal state when it comes to politics, is the shooting scene's huge. It really is. I mean, it's as big as any other state in the country. But I mean, you're right. You have to go, hey, wait a minute. We're here, but everybody else is everywhere else. So we got to kind of include them, right? Or if not, you isolate your audience. So
exactly. Yeah. And that's one thing, like we've been trying to expand even to, get other partners or sponsors that, are interested. Like we were talking to a guy down in Florida and, it didn't necessarily work out because, it wasn't something that he felt we would bring value to his company. Right. And so that's kind of the tough part for us. It's like, that's why we're kind of like picky and choosy on the things and the people that we partner with, because one, we really truly want to believe in what they're doing, especially if they're from the state of Michigan, if it's, a small time fishing, fishing lure company, who we're partnered with now, it's just a lot to take into consideration. And that's kind of to your point too. There's just so much that goes into it outside of just getting behind the mic and just having a conversation.
yeah,
So
sponsors are a tricky thing too because like if I was just at the South Central Regional in Louisiana and I was in a rhino rig and I was talking to Scott Dixon and he's like, man, we still get like almost every day somebody's either calling or bringing something to the shop and I heard about you guys from the Deadpair, and that's awesome, right? Like that's a good return on their investment. They know it's working. But then you take like Atlas Traps and he's like, there's no possible way for us to know for sure that this guy's buying a trap because he heard of an Atlas, because that's just not how their customer base works. So he said, but I can, Scott Manspeaker, the CEO of Atlas, he said, I can, without a shadow of a doubt, say that since sponsoring the podcast, our sales have increased exponentially. So it's worth it they believed in us and they gave us a shot, and then they saw their sales go up, whether they could, directly track it or not. They felt that there was value in sponsoring the podcast. We've been very fortunate. We've had some really great sponsors, and some of us have been with us since the beginning, and some of them have kind of dipped out, but in talking to some of them, they're coming back. So, but that's the one thing, is the relationships we've built with them. And that's the thing that I wish more of our listeners would take a little bit more heart in what I say, in finding the value in the sponsors that we have, because it's not just the products, it's the people behind them. And that's the great thing about it, and we've told people for a long time, look, if the sponsor leaves today, we're still using their product tomorrow. And that holds true, and like OtoPro, Dr. Grace has been just absolutely fabulous. And she wanted to try some other marketing things. She wasn't with us this past year, but I saw her at the US Open, and she's like, I'm trying to come back to you guys. I want to be back with you guys. And because she saw, the value in it. And we still recommend people to her. People, hey, I know OtoPro is not with you. Who do you recommend? No, we still recommend OtoPro. We still use their products, and we still deal with Dr. Grace. So, and that's just one small example, but sponsorship's a tricky thing. Especially with the economy the way it's been, people just don't have the money to spend like they did before,
Exactly. And one of the things too, it's, I found that, if you go later into the year and you're like, hey, I'm looking for sponsorships, or, this is what we have to bring. It's like, their resources for the year are already tapped out.
They're allocated.
We can meet in February, but then we meet in February and then they're like, well, it's not anything that we're really interested in pursuing at that time. And what can you say? You're just like, well, okay, sounds great. So yeah, I totally agree. Definitely tricky. That's for sure.
Yeah. That's one of the things we're kind of fortunate about, because I always make it a point to go to the Nationals every year for a multitude of reasons. But one of those is that 90% of our sponsors are there, and I always go meet with them. If I haven't seen them all year, I know they're going to be there, and I always go meet with them, and we kind of make sure that everything's re-upped for the following year. That's in October. And to be honest with you, some of the larger companies have already allocated their money by the end of September. And, so it's a tricky thing, but we push very hard to try and make sure that the sponsor is getting at least tenfold what they've given us. If not, then and that holds true even for an individual shooter. If having somebody's name on your vest is so important to you, you need to make sure you're giving them 10 times their return on their investment. And a lot of, especially the younger crowd, they don't understand that. It's like, well, just give me some free chokes. Well, okay, what are you going to do to make them compensate for the 10 free chokes they just gave you?
Yeah.
How are you going to bring business? So
that's totally true. And I think that, for the people that do a good job of that, I think the power of social media, that's an incredible, opportunity for some of these young people to utilize and stuff. And there's a lot of people that are good at it.
Yeah.
They can, they can sell you a pen, and it's like, well, I'm interested,
Yeah.
But yeah, and there's other people that you see post stuff and it's like, well, who the heck are you type thing, so.
Right.
But no, that's awesome.
It's, if you look at some of the shooters that are sponsored and they're not in that top, very, very top echelon, like the top 10, let's put it that way. Top 10 overall, never mind all the concurrent stuff, just say top 10. And you think, why would a company give them all that money or all that product or whatever it is that they're giving them for sponsorship? Well, go look at their social media. If they're, my favorite example of this is Chad Roberts. Chad Roberts has been struggling the last couple of years, but you know what? He does so much for his sponsors through social media, like just straight up networking or B2B. You know, I mean, he really does a lot for his sponsors, and he truly cares about his sponsors, and he does everything he can to make sure they, they get their money's worth with him. They really do.
Yeah. Oh, that's great.
Then you got other guys at the top of the game, and no, I don't want to call out any names, but there's people that don't wear any of their sponsors' products. I'm wearing a Kohler hat right now. I wear 10 different hats, and I change them constantly. I look like a NASCAR driver doing an interview, sitting there changing hats, but we try as best we can. But there's people that are out there that they don't wear any of their sponsors' gear, anything. You wouldn't even know that they're sponsored. So it's like, what kind of a return is that sponsor getting by helping that person?
Yeah.
So
It's interesting because I feel like, and we're not going to name names, but I feel like I can see a few people that you're referring to, that are at the top of their game, and I feel like, those people should, I don't know. I feel like they're the ones that are representing the future of this sport, and the future of sporting clays. And the future of sporting clays might be for some individuals that, are involved in sponsorships and stuff. And I feel like those new shooters need to know that, this is the appropriate way to handle your partners, by ensuring that if this is what you're going to provide for them at the very least, then just wear their name on your vest, wear their name on your shell pouch, wear their hat, a shirt, whatever.
right.
So yeah, it's just really, really interesting to me.
Yeah. I mean, like I said, though, social media is a weird thing, too. I mean, a lot of people, all of the marketing that they do for their sponsors is all through social media. And that's fine. If that's what the agreement is, that's fine. But, us, we try to push above and beyond that. We try to do everything we can, both through the podcast, our website, through social media, the gear that we wear. We try to do everything we can for our sponsors. And of course, we have people that email and write us constantly and are asking us questions about product. Hey, did you really mean what you said? Yes, I meant what I said. And the funny thing is they come up to me at a tournament and they want to see those Ranger React glasses, or they want to see those Odo Pro ears, or can I try a couple rounds of that Fiocchi? Yeah, absolutely. Give them a handful, give them a box, whatever. And they want to see my Kohler, and they want to see all the products. And then it's awful funny because within a week, they're buying those products. They understand, the value that Sean and I put in them.
Sure. Yeah. No, that's great. So what do you think? I guess that kind of leads me into my next question. So being that you are very prevalent across the country on we're just going to call it the shooting circuit. And you also run a very successful podcast. When you go to a shoot, do you find that it's difficult for you to turn off your podcast brain and turn on your shooting brain?
Very much so. A funny statement about that. I tell everybody I never wanted to be famous. I just wanted to be rich. Well, now I'm famous and I'm still broke. So I'm bear with me, figuring it out. So I can give you an example that I was at the U.S. Open at Providence. Was it? Providence this year. And I didn't have a golf cart. And I was getting a ride from a very good friend of mine, Matt Miller. And I said, what do you got next? He goes, well, I don't shoot again. He was shooting some side event, super sporting or something. Because I don't shoot for like another 2.5 hours. I'm going to the truck to hide. I'm like, really? And he's like, yeah. He's like, he's one of these people, he has to decompress. He can't be around people. He has to just go spend his time. And I get that. Anthony Matarese is very much like that. And I said, man, I wish I could do that. And he looked at me and he goes, I don't know how you do it. He goes, I'm giving you a ride back up to Vendors Row. We've been stopped 3 times from people that just want to say hi or talk to you. And he's like, you know who any of these people are? I'm like, I've never met these people, these 3 that you're referring to. I've never met them. He's like, I don't know how you do it, man. And I'm like, I'll never forget. I was stepping in the box at Nationals and the trapper wanted to talk to me about the podcast, and I'm standing in the box holding my gun, and we've got 2 shells in my hand. It's my turn to shoot. And I'm like, I appreciate it. I really do. Can we hold this off until I get done shooting? And, and I don't I don't want to ever come off as rude to somebody, but the times that I have gone and hidden like Matt and try to decompress, everybody thinks I'm an a-hole because I'm not talking to them. And so I'm really, to be honest with you, I'm probably as sought after as any of the top level shooters are. And I don't that's not I'm very humble about that. I don't want you to take that the wrong way. I don't want sometimes I really wish I wasn't that guy. People want to come and talk to me, and that's awesome. It's their chance to finally see the guy that they listen to every week. And I think that's cool. I never would have dreamed that would have happened. But to answer your question, it is very difficult to go out and put a round together because you have constant distraction.
Yeah, I totally believe that. And it's almost like when you see a celebrity at a restaurant.
Yeah.
It's like you want to go up and talk to them, but it's like they're just there eating dinner. Just leave them alone.
Yeah.
Like just they don't want to talk to you. But again, like that's part of the entertainment business that you're in as well. That also plays a big part of it. That you want people to also feel like you're approachable and stuff. But when you're stepping into the stand, like that's just ridiculous. Like come on, Trapper.
Well, and this is way outside of anything that we deal with, but I'll never forget my dad was telling me a story about there was a famous actor and his manager wanted him to meet Jack Nicholson. And they were at a restaurant. He's like, "Oh, I want you to meet him." And the manager went over and Jack was like, "No, just leave me alone. I want to eat. Just leave me alone." And a lot of people perceive that as rude. And even my dad was like, "That's just rude as." Do you know how many people harass that guy? I mean, he finally gets to go out to a restaurant and he's already being attacked. I mean, but I'm the opposite of that where I can't turn it off. I could be right in the middle of a mouthful of food at a restaurant. Somebody comes there, "Are you Jason Rambo?" And I jump up and want to shake their hand. I appreciate it. It's just, it's back to the shooting though. It's just hard for me to turn that off at the tournament. So,
Yeah. So I guess I kind of want to shift gears again. So when did you start shooting and how did you get involved into the sporting clays community?
so it was like, Sean and I have been back and forth about this. One thing that's cloudy is like, it was like 94 or 95. I had shot a trap and stuff in high school. Didn't really dabble in any skeet. And then my dad came to me one day. He's like, "You need to go check out the sporting clays thing with us." I'm like, "What are you talking about?" And the club's still there to this day. It's a little tiny club, Sunbury, Ohio. And he took me, of course, all handset traps. There was no auto traps back then. And we shot 50 birds. And I don't think I even hit half of them. And I was having so much fun. I'm like, "This is awesome." And I told my dad, I said, "Don't you ever do this again without me." He goes, "Jason, we shoot every weekend." And that started it. And I literally shot every single weekend. It's either 94 or 95, all the way up to like 2001. And then I stepped out of it because I was back to racing amateur motocross at the time. And I carried that for years. And then I didn't come back to the sport until 15. And then I think I started shooting registered in like the end of 16 or beginning of 17. So,
Okay.
but yeah, so I took a hiatus. I wish, looking back now, I wish I would have never stopped. I wouldn't have had a broken neck. I broke my neck and my back in motocross, so I wouldn't have had that. And who knows where I'd be right now, I mean, or maybe I'd be a 10-time greater shooter. I don't know. Everything, fate has a way of handling everything, I guess. So,
Yeah.
uh,
Yeah, no,
yeah.
that's crazy. I mean, that's pretty cool. So in 1995, I would have been 6 years old.
Thanks for making me feel old, Dan. Thanks, bud.
No problem. No problem. But yeah, and I started shooting in 2000. So I was very fortunate that my dad and my grandpa and my mom, of course, they were basically my bank, for any sort of shooting, and that's the reality of it. I mean, being 10 years old, you can't afford this sport. I mean, yeah, it's expensive now. I mean, it was expensive back then too, so
Well, that's something that Sean and I joke about all the time is, back then, before they were bought out by Dick's Sporting Goods, it was Galleons. And you could go to Galleons and they would have flats of Winchester double A's for, I think it was like $45 a flat case. And you could get Fiocchi's, which were the purple hull shells back then. You could get Fiocchi's for, I want to say it was like $40 a flat, or maybe it was $38 a flat or something. And then I started reloading. So I was reloading for like, I want to say it was like $24 a flat or $23 a flat. Um, and I mean, we would shoot, I don't know, probably 200 to 250 rounds a weekend. But I remember my dad saying, look, time you cover your gas and your food and the shooting, it's $100 a week habit. I'm sorry, you can't even buy a flat of shells right now for $100. But back then when we started, that's what it was. And it was very inexpensive compared to racing. I also did side-by-side mud drags and stuff. And if you think this sport's expensive, go buy a set of heads for one of those motors.
Yeah, no thanks.
I had $20,000 in a set of heads.
Man,
that was just the heads. That wasn't the rest of the motor or the rest of the truck. So, yeah, it can get real expensive, but it's, I don't know. I think it's the greatest sport in the world. I really do. Obviously how ate up I am with it, but I think the greatest statement ever made was by Tommy Browning. He said, there's no strangers in sporting clays, just friends you haven't met yet. And that's so true. It really is. It's really true. Some of you want to strangle, but they're all your friends, it's been great. It really has.
Yeah. And I think, like I kind of reflect on the Michigan sporting clays community, and some of the people that I've met, throughout the way. And, I've had the luxury of learning how to shoot from Pat Liskey, and, that was my, yeah. He's, Hall of Fame sporting clay shooter, and not only is he a good shooter, he is quite possibly one of the best human beings that I've ever met in my life. That man will give his shirt off his back to a complete stranger if they ask, and that says a lot about Pat and his family, but that also isn't far from a lot of other individuals in this state either. And it's not only in just Michigan. There's a lot of good people in this community. And, for those of you that are listening that haven't tried sporting clay shooting or haven't tried skeet shooting or trap shooting, find your local gun club, go talk to the folks, shoot me a text, shoot me a message, come find us, we'll put you in touch with the right people to get you started. And it's something that, I just can't stress enough. If you're ever interested in shooting clays, let's do it. Give me an excuse to get out of the house. My wife might not like it, but we'll figure it out.
Well, a very good friend of Sean's. In fact, the man cooked all the food at my wedding. Big time bird hunter. And he spends more time in Michigan than he does in Ohio, during the season. We introduced him to sporting clays, and he shot with us for a very long time. And I remember him telling me, he said it started in dove season. It translated the rest of the hunting season, how much better he was shooting hunting because of sporting clays. If you're having trouble at a dove field, man, there's so many places you can go go shoot sporting clays, and you'd be surprised how much better you'll get. And understanding leads and all that kind of stuff, and judging speed, angle, distance, all that kind of stuff. And that really does translate over into the hunting. And a lot of people that listen to our show, they shoot sporting clays recreationally, but they do more hunting. And I've had people tell me that they've picked up a lot just by listening to the pros and talking about how to engage the target. Well, it can work the same way with a bird, and they've learned a lot, and that's awesome. I think that's cool. Enjoy the sport for what it is, but if you're big time about hunting, you don't have to quit doing that and take up sporting clays,
For sure.
Oh yeah. Yeah. Well, it's funny because a lot of the top pro shooters, they put the gun in the safe after the national championship at the end of October, and they're grabbing their duck gun or whatever, their auto, and they're going out and they're sitting in a duck blind or a goose blind or dove hunting. I mean, that's all they do all the way around until the Florida swing starts at the end of January. So, and some of those we don't even see. They won't even be at that until late deer season or whatever. I think they do. I don't know if they do it in Michigan, but I know in Ohio they got a muzzleloader season in January, and some of them they don't come down to the Florida swing and start that. All the big blast shoots. They won't start that because there's still deer hunting to do, up north. So
Yeah. Yeah. Yep. The deer, you have to count the deer and you have to tame the herd somehow, right? So,
yeah, exactly.
so what, so I guess I wanted to kind of touch on a couple other sporting clays things here before I want to talk some hunting. I want to talk a little fishing. I want to talk Florida hunting,
Yeah.
all that stuff. But, so when you step into a station, what are some of the things other than hoping the trapper doesn't talk to you about the podcast? What what are some of the things that go through your head that, one, I guess the first side of this is that you wish you didn't have go through your head, or two, that you really practice on trying to make sure that you're prepared?
Well, I'm not the expert by any means, but what my struggles have been is one is knowing what my score is already. You know what I mean? Like if I'm halfway through a round, I'm counting misses. Where am I at? And that's probably the worst thing you could do. It really is. So that's a struggle. Outside distractions are a struggle. But what I'm trying to focus on before I even get in the cage, I've already done a real good scope of my landscape, and I'm already looking at speed, angle, distance. I may not be calculating it anymore like I did in the past, but I'm leaning more towards instinctive shooting. But when I step in there, I'm really big on hole points and I'm really big on line. So I'm focused on that for the first target, and then what my transition is going to look like to the second target. And then I've already, I've already established outside the box, like how much lead a target's going to take or what method I'm going to use, or I've kind of ran that through. I've kind of ran my game plan before I even step in there. So when I'm in the box, everything goes to focused on hole point and line. And then from there, when I call pull, the only thing I'm looking for is a hard focus on the target. I mean, Kevin DeMichael said it best one time. He goes, "Man, when you're zoned, you can have a herd of Cape buffalo running up behind you. You wouldn't know it." And I try to find that, not necessarily find the zone, but I try to find that level of focus on being where my feet are, even though I hate that saying, uh, and just concentrating on what I'm doing, what's about to happen, how am I going to execute. So, and it's look, like I said 100 times before, Sean and I are not the experts. Our job is to get the experts on and ask them the right questions. But that's where I'm at in my game. I'm back in masterclass again, so I feel like it doesn't matter as much until I get back down to double A. I'm one of these guys that bounces back and forth from master and double A.
Yeah, me too.
And this year's been a roller coaster from hell. It really has. I started in January in double A. I went to 2 tournaments. I was a master. I shot my 1,000 targets, got my review, went back down to double A, went to 2 tournaments and earned enough punches and got thrown right back in master. So here I am for the rest of the year. But yeah, it's so from now here on out the rest of the year, the focus is really on fun for me and to try and be self-observant, if you will. Things, try to maybe look at the mirror a little bit on what I'm doing in the box and what I can correct and what can I do to perfect my game more and more and more. And it's funny because once you hit a certain level, and Anthony said this a couple of years back, you get to the point where you're almost self-coaching. And I feel like that's where I'm at right now. It's like, look, I'm self-aware enough to know what I'm doing right, what I'm doing wrong. When I walk out of the box, if there's any anger or frustration or anything like that, it's because I know exactly what I did wrong. And it's like, hey, you idiot, you knew better than that. Why did you do that? You sat there and ran your plan and you stepped in and you did something you weren't supposed to do. Why? Why'd you do that? What can you do to fix that? So my really good rounds, I'm able to figure that out in that pair and not do that again moving forward. my really bad rounds, I carry that with me the rest of the tournament. So that's where I'm trying to clean that up, you know?
Yep. No, that's fair. I think one of the things that I struggle with in the box is when I know that I'm doing something wrong and feeling like I shouldn't change. Like for example, like if I'm shooting a, I don't know, let's just say a hard left to right crosser, and I know that I'm off the line, and I'm like, oh, I'll get it, I'll get it. Like if I just put my gun in the right spot, it'll break. Well, it's like no, because you're offline. Like it won't.
Yeah.
So being able to recognize that in the moment and not dropping 4 targets and then stepping out of the stand and be like, oh yeah, I was offline. It's like, well, that doesn't do you any good now because now you got 4 misses on your card. So I think having the awareness, I think for me is one of the struggles, just having the awareness to know, what you're doing wrong, but also to know like what I'm also doing right, and what I also feel comfortable with and what's working for me. Like, for example, 2 weeks ago, I was shooting the Great Lakes Championship, and it was, one of our bigger shoots here in Michigan. We call it the second Michigan major of the year. And the two majors are, the Michigan State Championship and the Great Lakes Championship. And, day one shot well, shot 88. And for me, I don't practice, I just go out and shoot tournaments. That's all I do. And maybe that's my problem. But, day two come in and shoot the 1 o'clock flight and starts pouring down rain right at 1 o'clock. And like my first 4 or 5 stations, I was just being too careful. I was just making sure I was checking everything because it was pouring down rain, making sure I'm making the right shots. And then like all of a sudden, like station 6, I was like, Dan, just shoot. Like quit being too careful. Just go back to your aggressive style. And I missed 2 targets the last 6 stations. And so I saved a good round. I saved what was going to be an awful round. I pretty much saved it. And that's kind of like I said, that's kind of one of the things that I struggle with, that I wish I could have told myself that, 4 stations ago, 3 stations ago. But again, it's pouring down rain. You're trying to keep your gun dry. You're trying to keep yourself dry, for crying out loud, trying to keep the scorecards dry. I'm trying not to drive through the big mud puddle and get all your shit all dirty, And so again, millions of different things that go on in between stations that the good people don't worry about that stuff. They're going to get wet. Who cares? They're just going to go. They're going to get to the next station, and they're going to shoot. So that's what makes the game amazing.
When you get to the top echelon of shooters in this sport, you'll find that it's really not that one shooter has an extravagant amount of skill set higher than the other. It comes down to who makes the least amount of mistakes. And the really good shooters will drop a bird, know why they did it, and either don't let it happen again or make a correction. If there's something wrong with their plan, and then they won't drop a bird for 4 or 5 more stations. The guys that are having a really bad day will drop 2 in a station and then run 5 or 6 stations and clean it up. But the scores that they're turning, Brandon, I think it was at the Fraser Cup, he went like 400 targets straight or 350 targets straight or something like that before he dropped. That's insane. I still haven't shot 100 straight in a tournament yet, and I probably never will, knowing my dumb butt. But it's those guys, the level of focus I had. You said that it started branding on station 6. They would recognize it, but then they'd go right back to work like it wasn't even there, like it wasn't even happening, like nothing. They wouldn't let any of that affect them, and it's incredible to me. Outside the box, yeah, they'll complain about it or joke about it or whatever. But when it comes back into the box, it's like it's 70 degrees and dead calm. Like they don't know any different. It's incredible the amount of focus, the amount of just absolutely sheer determination that those guys and gals have when they step in the box. It's incredible. I wish I could have that level of just laser focus.
Me too. Me too. With things outside of just sporting clay shooting, I wish I could have laser focus with many other things.
Well, I understand that too, though, is a lot of those guys and gals at the top of the game, this is their job. And when I say it's their job, it's not the money that they're making in that tournament, but that score is going to make them lessons outside of that tournament, and that's where they make their money. That's their career. So for them, they're trying to turn as good of a score as they can because they know that's going to determine lessons for the next month.
That makes total sense. And a lot of people that are just, your average tournament shooters, they don't recognize that unless they're looking for help. Then they look to those people. You're not going to go to Dan Williams and look for a lesson. You're going to go to Pat Liskey. You're going to go to Matt Hudeman. Anybody else in the state that continuously puts good scores. Amber Brown. That puts good scores up. So yeah, it's a really interesting take.
Yeah, and then I guess my thing is until we get I don't think we'll ever make PGA level, but until our sport has that level of payout, I think for the vast majority of the people that compete in it, it's a recreational thing to do. I would like to see payouts get a little bit better. It'd be nice if a guy that's, regardless of class, if he goes to a big tournament and hits the top 5, he ought to be at least compensating some of his money that he's invested to be there. Right now, it's some of these tournaments we go to, it's a joke. Now, and I, no disrespect to any of the clubs or the promoters that are putting it on, but if I just spent $5,000 to go across the country and enter a tournament, and I placed 3rd in a tournament, and you don't hand me enough money to go buy lunch, problem.
Yeah, it is for sure. I agree. Totally agree. So, 2-part question here. Who's the best male shooter in the country right now?
You're going to get me in trouble.
You said you needed to check your lawyer, so this might be one of those ones.
Yeah. Statistically, I don't think you can argue with Brandon. He is the reigning national champ. He just went back-to-back world sporting championships. He was runner-up at Cyprus for the FITASC this year. I mean, that's the world's biggest stage, man. It really is. And to go runner-up at Cyprus, he backed up his Sporting Clays World Championship and E.J. Churchill. The year before it was at Anthony's when the Worlds was over here. And like I said, he's 2-time reigning national champion. And, we'll see what happens here at the end of the month. But, I hate giving a name because there's so many great shooters at the top. I mean, if you're going to the national championship and you're playing the odds in Vegas, yeah, okay, Brandon's going to have the best odds, right? But you'd be crazy to bet against Anthony, Corey, Gavin, Kevin. I mean, I can go right down the list. I can probably name 20 guys that have a shot, legitimately. The best female shooter? I mean, statistically, I would have to look at the results right now. I'd say it's probably a toss-up between Madison Sharp and Karen Miles. Have been really lighting it up. It's funny. We have a podcast coming out next week. I did with Ashley Halfley Alexander, which is now Cyrus Alexander's.
Yep. Great people.
I knew that she was a badass with a shotgun in the past until I looked it up. Multi-time national, world champion, national champion, U.S. Open champion, regional. Well, back then it was zone shoots. Once, yeah. I mean, this girl was nobody was beating her. I mean, and she was a Hall of Fame inductee. So,
yeah. Well, she's bad to the bone, man. She was, because I think her and David came up kind of in the same, let's just say, draft class, right? Like they, sort of came up at the same time, and David was the male to beat. Ashley was the female to beat.
And both products of Wendell Cherry. And she, we had her on, and I think I even mentioned it on the show. I was having a conversation with David one time. He's like, man, there's been shoots. She flat out kicked my butt. I'm like, get out of here. Because David, when he was younger, nobody was touching him. And he's like, no, I'm serious. She pounded me. I'm like, are you kidding me? So, I mean, and then like I said, you go back and you start looking at her stats, and it's like, holy cow, this girl got it done with a shotgun. And there's, like I said, Karen Miles right now and Madison Sharp are lighting it up. But you can't deny, oh my gosh, there's so many, Desi, uh, Halen Hanks. I mean, Amber Brown, she's having a good day. I mean, there's so many wonderful shooters out there. You'd be crazy to bet against.
No, for sure. Yeah, I can't agree more. And I don't mean to totally put you on the spot there, but
I know.
I've been dying to ask these questions to people that know, the circuit, and it doesn't surprise me in the slightest bit that was, your response. But
Yeah,
yeah,
and you go to certain clubs, certain venues, certain styles of targets, depending on this target setter, somebody's going to get hot. You know what I mean? And you never know. But however you want to call it, fortunately, unfortunately, or whatever you want to call it, Brandon has found a way. Cream rises to the top, and he's found a way to be that cream. The last 2 years, he has just. I mean, he's won every single regional except for the South Central, and we won't get into what happened there. But if it wouldn't have been for that little situation, he'd have won it. I mean, the guy's won every single regional this year. He's 2-time back-to-back national champion. We'll see what he does this year. But, and the girls, man, I'm telling you, it's a matter of time before they start HOA in tournaments. It really is.
I think I saw one of the recent events, one of the side events. I think Karen HOA'd one of them.
Yeah.
I think it was a prelim or something somewhere that I think she HOA'd, and I think she was like 99 or something like that.
Well, yeah.
Yeah, I mean these women are incredible.
It's
Not to mention, I'm gonna butcher his name, but Jocks or Jack. He's like kind of got that French name. He's real young. He's like 12.
Portier or Porter.
Portier. Yeah. That kid.
Yeah.
Holy moly.
He can get it done. And I'm telling you something, that's something else too. There's a lot of juniors coming up right now. Grayson Ponder's one to look at, there's a lot of Hunter Webb, product of Brandon. And he's worked with Chad Roberts. I mean, that kid can get it done. You can't deny Connor Daniel. I mean, the Griffin Howe. I mean, the list goes on. I mean, these young kids, as long as they stay with it, that's the thing, because we kind of lose them. Joe Finizzi, he's still popping in here and there at tournaments, but ever since he started college, you don't see him as much. And that's my only fear is it's really not, it shouldn't be a fear because it's commonplace. Mom and dad cut the purse strings. They're off on their own now. They've graduated college. They got to go get a job. They can't afford, pallet loads of shells to go shoot every year. So it's common, but we see them come back. Once they get established, early to mid 30s, they come back. But yeah, I mean,
I was a product of that. I came back shooting. I took all my 20s off. Then when I turned 30, I turned 32, and that was when I started coming back. And I actually have a plaque up in my office of the Deadpair prelim, second place AA at the night shoot.
Yep,
So,
I remember that. That was awesome.
yeah, it was fun. Sorry. Well, that's cool. I really like hearing, sort of like the insider scoop, and having these sorts of conversations with people. And, there's a couple of people that come to mind in the state of Michigan that I wish were still here to see, this sport evolve to what it was. So there was a guy, his name, and I know you've heard of him, Tom Mack. Tom Mack was one of the greatest to ever shoot a gun here in the state of Michigan. And there was another gentleman kind of in that same sort of time frame. His name is Mike Revest. And
yeah.
And he had a tragic accident. I think it was 04. I think it was him and his son died in a house fire. And, it was just like, seeing and kind of reflecting back on that and seeing like the people that were like at the top of their game then. And it's like they would be one of, a veteran status or even maybe a super veteran status now. And, seeing those guys and allowing them to sort of see the new youth shooters and like the Madison, Brandon, for crying out loud, Anthony, and seeing those guys still shine. I know those guys would just be just beside themselves just to see that from afar. So, but I mean, it's amazing how, even, like my class was, pretty much consisted of, Ashley, she was around, David, he was around, and he would come up and, just clean house. I mean, I know one year David came up and shot 100 straight at one of the events that we were at here, and he was just like 11 years old, 12 years old. It's like okay.
Yeah.
No. And that's one thing that Michigan doesn't really have. We don't have a strong, like, junior, sub-junior, lady concurrent level shooters. I mean, we have shooters that certainly shoot, but you go to the Michigan State Championship and there might be 3, 4, and it's like, being able to see, what it was in my time of, I'm competing, for sub-junior against 20 other kids. Now these kids are maybe just getting, the best score out of 3 kids, so, but it's cool to see, like, from a national standpoint, like you look at the scoreboard on nationals, and there's a couple hundred kids. I mean, I give or take, a couple hundred sub juniors, maybe juniors in there, and some of those are at the top of the list of masterclass, and it's really, really cool to see.
Yeah.
It really is. So
Absolutely. Yeah. These kids it's Sean always says the eyes and the reflexes and stuff, but I think it's no fear.
yeah.
You made a comment a minute ago. You were on Station 6 and, you were, protecting your leads and, that kind of thing. And I guarantee you were checking, guarantee you were shooting what I call shooting safety, and those are the 2 biggest detrimental things you can do is, checking your leads, and that kind of thing. And barrel checking, as some people call it. And, trying to shoot careful and all that kind of stuff. These kids have no fear. They just let it rip. And I honestly think, and Wendell's even said this on a podcast, that some of your best shooting comes from that, shooting aggressive and shooting for speed. And these kids, they don't know what it's like to miss a target sometimes,
Yeah. Oh man. Must be nice.
Tell me about it.
So I actually saw a video of Wendell, and you guys might have posted it, or somebody posted it, and it was when he won one of the events that he was shooting recently, and he's just so smooth, and he's just so methodical, and it's like, oh my gosh, like, I mean, even when he turned around and like kind of addressed the camera, he was just like, yeah, okay,
Yeah. That's Wendell.
like, oh man, I just have so many aspirations to just be like that in the world of shooting.
I equate a lot of that back to, I don't know if you know this about Wendell or not, but he was a very famous guitar player. Grand Ole Opry, all that stuff. And he's used to being on a stage in front of people. Like, people being there could be 10,000 people watching him. He probably wouldn't even know that one person was there. He's used to that, where the rest of us get really nervous in the box, bunch of people watching, final round or whatever. He loves that pressure. He loves it. Bring it on, and he can completely hold his composure when the heat's on, And I think there's something to be said too. You said about him being smooth. I think there's something to be said too about the ladies. If you think about something, you're not. You've seen girls in ballerina shoes, where they're up on their toes and they're spinning them. I don't think you're going to see me or Sean Alley doing that.
Okay. Nope.
But if you think about the grace that a woman can have, whatever it is, or something about her anatomy or whatever, right? Like, women move very gracefully. You get a woman that can move a shotgun and you're in trouble. I'm telling you right now, she was going to put up scores. If you watch these girls shoot, it is just like watching a dove fly, man. I mean, they're just smooth as silk. And, some of us guys look like, clumsy robots out there. So
most of us are.
Yeah, right. So,
well, that's cool. Well, so I know we've kind of, beaten up the Sporting Clays talk, and, for those of you listening, forgive me. I've been dying to talk to somebody about Sporting Clays for 192 episodes. So I finally got my wish. Let's talk a little bit of hunting. I know, Probably got about 15 minutes left or so. I don't want to go too long, but so what kind of hunting do you do? You hunt?
Well, since moving to Florida, I haven't hunted since I've been down here. I love dove hunting. Probably my favorite thing to hunt because you could be a little bit more laxed, if you will. And you could sit and talk to a buddy or something. Where deer hunting, you better be dead silent. You know all this stuff. But when I was in Ohio, I deer hunted, rabbit hunted, pheasant hunted. Of course, thanks to the coyotes and neighborhood cats, the rabbit population was down quite a bit. But did a lot of rabbit hunting and pheasant hunting growing up, a lot of deer hunting, and that was something I looked forward to every year was deer camp and all that stuff. Did that with my dad. I love doing that. But dove hunting was something that I always look forward to. That was always so much fun. There was a pond, 3.5 acre pond on mom and dad's property on the farm that I grew up on. And the fields, the cornfields would get harvested, and it was right around dove season every year. And they were coming in, and they'd always come to that pond for water. And we would have guys stationed around the pond in different spots, under trees and stuff. And man, there was times we just absolutely slaughtered them. And then we would go up and clean doves. And while we were cleaning, Dad would have the doves from the last hunt, wrapped in bacon and on the grill. And we'd all sit and have a beer. I just love that. I mean, that was so much fun to me. That was like going to a party with a shotgun versus normal hunting that I'm used to. So, it was a lot of fun. I love dove hunting.
Well, yeah, that's always kind of been one of my, I guess, kind of dreams to do as a kind of a bucket list thing for me. Is like you go down to nationals in San Antonio and you see all the doves. You see the big flocks. They're just kind of like going across the sky. It's like, oh man, I want to put some lead in their face. Like that sounds amazing. And you see like different videos of people doing that at like various farms. They go out to like somebody's ranch and they're just leaned up against the posts and waiting for the doves to fly by and pow pow pow. Done. It's wild.
Argentina, as everybody knows, is a dove hunting capital of the world, right? Well, apparently, Uvalde, Texas, which is where Matthew McConaughey is from, is the dove hunting capital of the United States. Because I got sent when I worked for a company called Quest Group in Ohio. When I worked for them, I got sent down. We had to build a new substation for AEP. I did site work for almost 35 years. But anyway, I had to build a new substation. Well, the substation was in Hondo, and we were staying in Uvalde, Texas, which is, for people that don't know, that's like southwest Texas. And the dove hunting season was coming on, and it looked like freaking mass hysteria, chaos at every Walmart, any kind of hunting goods store, gun store, anywhere around there. I mean, I remember seeing there was a semi load of shells was delivered to just a small mom and pop gun store. And there was a guy sitting on the back of the semi truck that would give people the shells. They'd check their receipt and give them I'm like, what in the world is there freaking pandemonium going on? What is everybody buying over there? Like, oh no, it's dove season down here. But when they would harvest the sorghum fields down there, the doves that would come in, I mean, it would actually on a bright sunny day, it would turn like it was cloudy. It was that many doves.
My gosh.
So it was crazy. It was insane. I'm like, I know where I'm going dove hunt now. So
no kidding. Have you ever done like a driven bird hunt at all?
No, I've never been a part of that.
Yeah. That'd be cool. That'd be pretty sweet to do.
I'd love to do that. Yeah.
I'd like to go do that in like England, shoot like one of those tower shoots that they have.
Yeah.
Get dressed up all in my nines, put my knickers on and, go out there and just, act like I'm playing golf with my shotgun.
Yeah.
That'd be cool.
I would love to do that.
For sure. I think what you should try to do now that you're down in Florida is go alligator hunting.
Actually, you're going to laugh, but the hunting that I want to do down here, you actually do with a full auto air gun.
Iguanas?
You get in a layout boat. There's a dog on the boat.
My God.
You go down this river You shoot as many iguanas, and the dog retrieves them.
Man, that sounds so cool.
Tell me, isn't that cool? I mean, I want to do that so bad. I mean, there's a hunt that goes on right before, I think it's right before the Caribbean Cup or Jacqueline's Cup. And I've been trying to get in on this hunt for like 3 years. And I'm like, man, I want to go. And they're like, well, we can only have so many people because of the layout boats on. I'm like, sign me up. Put my name down for 2 years from now. I don't care. I want to go do this. But yeah, I'd love to do that.
That would, I think I saw, I think it was Joe Finizzi did that one year. I saw a video of him and his dad doing that. And talk about a guy who hunts.
But yeah.
Holy moly.
Yeah.
Like, that dude goes on every freaking safari that you could possibly go on.
Have you heard of Ben McAnally? He's been on the program before.
You know, I recognize the name.
He was president of the Texas Sporting Clays Association for a really long time. And then now he just enjoys the sport for what it is. But that guy, he goes around the globe hunting. And he's got every kind of, bighorn, sheep, goat, whatever. I mean, he just came back from Canada. The pictures he was showing me was like, you got to be kidding me. So I think there's only one species that he hasn't got yet. And he's got a trip booked for Mexico to go get that one. So yeah,
that's wild. I mean, no pun intended. I mean, that's like super, super cool.
But yeah,
to be able to check that all, check every species off your list. Like, come on.
Yeah.
I can't even name 10 species, let alone all of them.
Oh, right.
So.
Yeah, I mean, it's one of those things. I think it'd be super cool to do it, but as far as getting into it like they did, there's just no way. I mean, Sporting Clays has got me so wrapped up, between the podcast and then like actually going and enjoying the shoots myself. I spend so much time away from home. If I told my wife I'm going to add this other thing to it, I might just get handed divorce papers. So,
all right. The Deadpair Safari podcast, a spinoff, the Deadpair, that's, you never know, right? Never know.
Yeah, no, I would love to get back into some hunting a little bit more. It just seems like, every time I turn around, I got my fingers on something else. And I hate to make excuses because really, I really do enjoy it. Fishing's another thing. I grew up, my grandpa had a house in Sarasota, right on the bay. In fact, the seawall he had lived in a cul-de-sac lot, and the bay wall wrapped his property. He had a yacht and he had a bass boat, and I grew up out on the water down there. That was my winters. We spent a lot of winters down there in Florida, Sarasota, and I miss that stuff. I really do. I'd love to go. They call it dolphin fishing, but the mai, I love to eat them, and I heard they're awesome to go fish for. And I would love to go do that. I just got to hook up the right people down here and go do it.
No, that's cool. I mean, you're in a good place to do it. I mean, some of the best bass fishing in the country is down in Florida. Florida, Texas, like.
Well, you know what I got right here close to where I live is where they go scalloping every year. So
yeah, what's that?
You basically go snorkeling and you take 5-gallon buckets and get all the scallops you can possibly imagine. And I was all about it. I really wanted to do it. And I was watching Shark Week and I saw where a bull shark attacked somebody scalloping literally 2 miles from where I live. I'm like, that's off the list now.
Yeah, no thanks.
I'm already the size of a sea lion anyway. I don't need to go out there and look like bait.
Right. How was that from that Finding Nemo, that shark bait? Ooh, ha, ha.
Yeah, that's me right there. You put me in a wetsuit, that's what I look like. So,
well, cool. Well, Jason, I really, really appreciate you taking the time to sit down with me tonight, man. It was super fun. I really, really, truly did enjoy everything about this, and I hope that for the listeners and everything, I hope we didn't bore you too much on our banter and everything, but yeah, no, I just wanted to say thank you so much, and I'm super, super happy for you guys and everything that you guys are doing with your show, and you guys are bringing a whole new layer of entertainment to this wonderful sport that we all love. So we really, truly appreciate what you guys do. So,
well, I sincerely appreciate that. I really do. I mean, that means a lot, especially coming from you, man. I've known you ever since we started the podcast back. Can you believe it's going to be 6 years ago this November in another month? But yeah, no, it's seriously, it's been an honor. I appreciate it. And, I'd love to come back on anytime. Just give me a call.
Awesome. Well, yeah, no, I truly appreciate those kind words. So yeah, thank you for that. So, well, cool. Any final thoughts from you, Mr. Rambo?
No, I think what you guys are doing is awesome. I love the show that you guys have created. I think it's really cool. Yeah, anytime anybody wants to go bust a few birds with me, clay birds, give me a call. Look us up. Sean's in Ohio. I'm in Florida. We're always about taking new people shooting. Check out our podcast if you want, the Deadpair Podcast. So we have, I think our website's thedeadpair.com, and then we're on all the directories. So yeah, check us out sometime.
Awesome. Yeah, I really do truly encourage everyone to check them out. So they're got a lot of cool things to offer.
Awesome. Hey, one last thing. Did you get your raffle ticket for the Deadpair color gun?
I did not. No. I need
you
to.
need to get on.
I know.
Drawing at the Nationals. So
yeah, no, I need to. What is it? $100, right? Is that what it was?
Yeah, the gun's valued at $32,000.
Yeah,
so
it's worth it.
It's a beautiful gun.
Yeah, it really is. Well, cool. Thanks everybody for listening. We appreciate you guys and your time. As always, get outdoors and don't be terrible.